Welcome to Platt365. We are doing a special episode today about homeschool on the road, also known as road school. We started this adventure about 11 months ago. We've been traveling around the country with our family. We have 3 girls. We have a 13-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 4-year-old. And we've been doing homeschooling on the road with them. So we've had a lot of questions about how to do that, why we did it, where we do it. So we're going to address some of those questions today. And Lisa does most of this, so I'm going to try and let her answer a lot of these questions because I have a tendency to ramble on. So let's go right into it, Lisa.
Okay. First disclaimer.
Yes.
We did not start homeschooling because we were on the road. We homeschooled for several years before we even thought about hitting the road. So that's kind of a little bit of a difference. So we had gotten our feet under us before we went on the road.
We've been on the road for 11 months. We've been having a lot of fun. So if you want to check out our adventures, please subscribe, hit the bell, and check out all our videos about all the fun stuff we've been doing. Now, moving right into the homeschool questions. So people ask, what is homeschooling? So how would you define homeschooling versus, public or private school?
Homeschooling is quite simply the definition of educating your child yourself. It goes along lines of who gives you curriculum, what structure are you following, and the short version answer to that is we determine our own curriculum. What we have done in the past is we followed the guidelines that were given to us by the state we were living in, which was New York State. They're a pretty stringent state. They're pretty strict on their requirements, and we followed all of those requirements.
Right.
Even though we are no longer residents of New York State, I am continuing to follow those because I do think it gives me a good guideline to flesh out our homeschooling plan for the year.
So we also have questions about how we choose curriculum. There's a lot of different, almost overwhelming on the stuff online.
Yes.
We went down the path of a classical education. And you can look into that. We won't go into detail, but that's what we chose, which once you pick that path, it kind of sets up the type of curriculum. It narrows it down to what you can choose. So we went that path, and we started purchasing curriculum. So people have also asked us if there are online classes. There are online classes, but we have chosen not to go that route yet. We might do that in the future. So moving on to when do we homeschool? Lise, can you tell us how we decide when to homeschool?
Our homeschooling, we're fairly structured. Bob and I own our own business. We run our own business. So we have quite a bit that we have to pay attention to, and lots of different details. That translates very much into pretty much everything we do, and homeschooling was not an exception. In fact, we have adapted our project management software into tracking homeschool.
It's called Asana.
Yes.
Yeah, we're not paid by Asana. In fact, we pay Asana.
Yeah, so we use Asana to assign and track homeschool assignments to the girls. They have access to that particular project, and so their to-do list pops up on their phone, and that way they can check it off and keep track of it. So every week I go through and I assign what they're going to be working on for that week. Right. That way I can keep a handle on if I need to have more or less assignments for the week, depending on what our activities, our schedules, if we're going to be traveling a lot that week, if we're going to be stationary, I adjust accordingly for that.
Right. So on days when we're on the road, we pretty much do minimal, like when we're actual travel days. We don't do very much homeschool those days. But on the days when we're in a site, we finish schoolwork by noon, and then we go out and see whatever it is to see. National park, go on a hike, stuff like that. So the next group of questions are, where do we homeschool? Obviously, we're in an RV. It's a 40-foot long RV. So we have limited space, and we've had to be a little creative on how to use that space efficiently for homeschooling. And would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So one of the things when we did switch over to homeschooling, I couldn't handle the clutter of having school books everywhere all the time. These are only a few of the curriculum books. That's none of the teacher books. So there is a considerable amount of actual curriculum and books that are required because we've elected to not be doing online classes.
Right.
So I've elected to go this route, but that does mean I need to store them somewhere. So I have it split into the girls' books and my books. And in the RV, space is limited.
Yeah.
So we modified our bunkhouse, and you can check out our mods video to show where we put a 6-foot desk in that both of the big girls can be sitting at and doing their schoolwork, and then we put a small cube storage underneath it that they can store their curriculum in. And then I have a small shelf in the kitchen that I have my curriculum, my teacher books in, that I can do that. So they do 95% of their work in the bunkhouse, either at their desk, or sometimes if they're reading, they will cozy up in their reading nook or in their bunk.
Right.
And then I grade things here at the table.
Another thing that comes up with where do we homeschool is the concept of physical education or sports teams. When we're traveling a lot, we're going on hikes, we're going through national parks, that kind of thing. When we're in one location like we are now, we've plugged into the YMCA, so they go rock climbing, they track, they rowing machine, swimming, all that stuff. Sporting teams, that's a big thing for especially getting into junior high and high school. Danielle was really plugged into the rowing, and that's one of the things, the one kind of downside is you're not plugged into those teams like you were before, and it's something you really have to weigh. If that's something that's really important to you, this is not great for that type of experience. Another thing about where is, like, how do you check out books at the library? We were at the library a lot in upstate New York. We've gone to libraries across the whole country. We just can't check those books out. Now that we're in this area, we belong to a library, and we ended up doing all digital books anyways. So the whole physical book thing is not as big of a thing as it used to be. All right, so we're jumping right into why. This is the big question. Why do we homeschool? Why do people homeschool? We came from a whole other school of thought that was like, I want to even say anti-homeschool, and we are now like huge fans of it. So it's an interesting story, actually, how it all started. You want to tell the story of...
Well, it's an interesting story, but it does get a little long-winded at times.
It is. So we sum up. The short version of this story is we were really challenged by some friends and family on this concept, not just a personal challenge, but like watching and observing other families. We had a lot of small things happen in the public school system. Nothing huge, but small things. And I'm not going to go into all the details, but let's just say we thought, hey, we're in an opportunity since we own our own business and we have the freedom to be able to work from home to at least try to homeschool. Yes. And this was, what, 4 years ago? This was 4 years ago, and we had the thing that kind of pushed us over the edge was the academic. Right.
Our school district is a top-notch award-winning school district that we come from. So we had no issues with the level of education that the public school district offered. We did have an issue with some of the access to things. Our oldest daughter at the time was in 4th grade, and she was taking all of the advanced placement classes. Our school district runs elementary school up through 5th grade. So when she was going to be going into 5th grade, she was not allowed to continue the advanced placement into the 6th grade classes because there was not an opportunity for her to be bused to another school for it. So she would have had to repeat the entire 5th grade curriculum that she'd already completed, already done wonderfully on. She aced every test. So she would have had a repeat of an academic year, which is frustrating.
Right.
And due to that and a couple other small kind of fringe things, it just seemed like even if we took the time and pulled her out and we failed horribly, she would go back at the exact same level as her peers. So we figured we could have a year to experiment with it. Instead, we fell in love with it, and we've been doing it ever since.
Right, and every year we do an assessment, is this right? And so it may be at one point that they say this is not for us, or we say this is not for us, and then we do something different. So we kind of assess that. So that kind of sums up why. I mean, there's more details, but we're not, we could spend an hour telling you why. So, but some of the I wanted to get into some of the common questions that people ask us, and these questions are funny because we would ask these questions to people in the past, and after doing a bunch of research, this is where we landed. Some of the common questions we're asked are, what curriculum do you use, and how do you choose? Well, we talked about that a little bit earlier, but what ends up happening is you meet a lot of people along the way, like-minded people in co-ops. You start down a path, and then you kind of adjust. So you're not going to hit it 100% on your first year, but it's better just to give it a shot and try, and then you kind of modify later. Next question is, what about standardized tests? You want to take that one?
Standardized tests are great. The district we came from required standardized tests essentially every other year. They're a great benchmark for where we are, how the girls are doing, as far as, and also benchmark for me, so that I understand if I need to spend more time on a particular area. There's 2 real standardized tests that are kind of the benchmarks across the nation. There's the CAT test, which is the California Achievement Test, and then there's the Stanford 10 test. And we do the Stanford 10 because it breaks the results down into 30 or 40 different categories, and it's very detailed on the feedback you get.
Yeah.
Cool. And it's not too expensive. It's like $40 or $45 per kid for the test.
The next question we get is, do you report their grades, and who do you report it to? And I'll take this one because it's a long answer. Sorry. Every state is different. Every state has different rules. Look into the state that you're in to see what your rules are. We moved from New York. Now we're in Washington. So New York was really stringent about things. Washington's much more laid back. We're still staying to the New York standards just because we're kind of used to it. So yeah, look into what's appropriate for you.
As far as reporting your grades, even if you are not reporting your grades, do some kind of standardized test, I would recommend every year or two, so that at the end of their homeschool education, they have some type of transcript.
Another important question is, do you really feel qualified to teach your kids? Do you have an education background? A lot of people feel like they don't feel qualified, like they can't actually teach their kids. Well, our education has gone up through, college. We've taken a lot of these classes, but it was like a long time ago. The curriculum is written in such a way that you can really, if you can read, you can get through it. And the kids, as they get older, become more self-sufficient and are able to get through a lot of the curriculum themselves and just need help from time to time. The younger they are, the more they need help, is what we've noticed.
One other question we get is about college acceptance and how do you plan appropriately for your homeschooler to be accepted into college. It's pretty much the same as when you're coming out of public school, with the caveat that a lot of colleges are now starting to prefer homeschoolers to public schoolers for the simple fact of time management. Many times homeschoolers are better at their time management and will have more successful college careers than those coming straight out of public school. It's just because most homeschooling classes are taught in the same manner of college classes.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, so exactly. And again, we don't want this to come off as you have to homeschool your kids. It's not right.
No.
It's not right for everybody. It works for us, and we, like Lisa said, we started doing this before the whole RV trip. The fact that we have our own business and we homeschool our kids just fit perfectly into this full-time RV lifestyle, which we're really, really happy with. Everybody loves the travel and to go see different things, and the ability to homeschool the kids is a great thing. So if you're thinking about it, I hope this video helped. If you have any questions for us specifically, put them in the comments below. We're really good about replying to questions. If you want to know any specific curriculum or any of that stuff, we'd be happy to share that as well. So, again, this is Platt365. This has been a fun little discussion about homeschool or road school, and hope you liked it. Give it a thumbs up, hit the bell, and don't forget to subscribe.
And we'll see you soon.